Greetings, everyone. Guess what came out today?
Well, assuming you upload this the same day,
Hey,
but yeah, the release of the PlayStation 4 has finally come, thus ending the
seventh
seventh
generation.
generation.
No,
Yeah.
the seventh generation ended last year when the Wii U came out. Get it together, guys.
Oh, I'm
Jesus.
sorry,
Even
Ted.
though, for all intents and purposes, that's a slightly shinier Generation 6 console,
Well, no,
hardware-wise.
well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't really matter how
Yeah, I
advanced it
know, I
is,
know.
but
It's just that,
The
like,
generation doesn't really start until everyone's.
we'll get to my complaints with that when we talk about the Wii. But yeah,
The
I'm not
generation
getting a PS4 until Final Fantasy 15 comes out, so I don't really care right now.
infamous second son, Lewis.
It's not enough for me to buy a console at launch. I'd
You
rather
guys
wait until
haven't-
kinks work out, you know.
yeah, you guys haven't learned not to buy a console at launch yet.
I don't know. My launch PlayStation 3 seems to be holding up just fine.
And it can play PlayStation 2
Two
games.
games. So fuck you.
But you
Yeah, but you also spent $599 on that bitch.
he's got you there.
True.
Well, so at this point in time, you have your PS4. It's in the mail.
It's in the
It's
mail.
being shipped. All right. So Brian will be the first to make the generation leap. I guess we all kind of did when we got Wii U's, except for Lewis.
Well, again, considering what we do, I like to be up to date, and in case there's any indie games I particularly fall in
Oh,
love with.
yeah, without it. Yeah, I'm shooting to get into PS4 probably in the beginning of January. Right now I just don't have the time.
Because Infamous, Watch Dogs, and Metal Gear Solid Ground Zero come out in like February and March.
Yeah, all the good shit starts coming out next year. But that could be said for every console game out there. Like, Ted, it's not exaggerating. There's really no need to get a console at launch unless you absolutely need to have it. Maybe it's your job to do that sort of thing.
Like we do.
Yeah, we do because what we do. But when it comes to like the library of games that are available at the moment, most of the time you're better off just waiting.
Yeah.
But with that said, this video is pretty much just looking back at the previous generation with the Nintendo Wii, the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page, and there seems to be no other. We have the. No, I wouldn't say. Wait, the Nintendo DD. No, not the Nintendo
It
DS.
counts. Yeah, I don't count
Handhelds and home consoles are very separate things for me.
Because I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page for reference, and they mentioned the Nintendo DS and the PSP. Do you guys just want to cover them real quick, I guess, and
Not
like,
really.
as a footnote?
Again, it's very different because I don't consider handheld gaming to really start until the Game Boy came out.
Yeah.
My
Well, the
only
Game
thought
Boy
on that
/
is-
Game Gear.
My only thought on that is I hate the hardware for the DS. I hate the game library for the PSP, and that's pretty much it.
Just can't win.
Yeah,
No, I love the fuck out of the DS. So
Oh, yeah.
I
I
mean,
love to.
I'm just saying that even though technically there was handheld gaming before the Game Boy, it doesn't really start until Game Gear, Game Boy, so it's very different.
But what about the Game & Watch?
Yeah, that never really gets any love. We're talking about the character, right? No, we're talking about the actual system.
How about
I-
those Tiger Electronics things?
I
No one-
had a
no one
Tiger
likes it.
Electronics Virtual Boy like Knights game in Game & Watch format that was neon red and very annoying to look at, and I couldn't follow it at all, but somehow I had fun with it back in the day. So
Tiger
I'm-
Electronics Ninja Gaiden.
what?
It's not very interesting.
No.
So should we start with the 360 then? Because that's the one that first made the jump.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh,
Even though I never owned it.
What was the very first game you guys ever saw for the 360?
King Kong.
Mine
Sonic
was
06.
Sonic 06, yeah.
No,
mine was
King
mine
Kong.
was Dead Rising.
Mine was the first game I ever played was a store demo of King Kong.
The official
Jackson?
game
Yeah.
of the movie.
Yeah.
You guys say
When
the
I-
entire name right?
When I got a 360, the first game I picked up for it was Sonic 06 because I hadn't heard how shit it was at the time.
I won't have much to say on 360 games because unless it's multi-platform, because I never owned a 360. I've only played it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same
The
here.
360, the very first game I ever caught eye of. This was back in my first year of college. It was Dead Rising. I was watching a few of the residential assistants playing the game, and it was weird. It was weird to me at first because that's when games start incorporating motion blur and stuff like that. And I was wondering, I was like, wow, this game looks pretty fucking badass. And then because I've never seen graphics of this caliber before, and I see it's a 360, it's Dead Rising, and for that alone, I really wanted to get one. But
People forget how big a jump it really was between PS2 Xbox to PS3 Xbox
yeah,
360.
granted, like
It's not as noticeable, but
the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox had their good-looking games, but the jump, Jesus Christ! I mean,
Yeah.
this is apples and oranges when it comes to comparing the two qualities. But
Games could actually do gritty realism right for a change, which they couldn't do before this generation without looking at least a little bit ugly most of the time. And that's kind of where the eye-boggling thing for me came from.
yeah, and when it came to actually getting the system myself, I didn't get a 360 until 2008, and my first game was Sonic 06 as well.
You guys are fucking morons.
Well, Lewis has an excuse. He didn't hear how bad the game was. I, on the other hand, have no excuse. I knew how bad the game was. I was curious, man. I was
morbidly curious.
morbidly
yeah.
curious to see.
Play
Wow,
a good game first.
I
Jesus.
did buy good games along with Sonic 06, but Sonic 06 was technically the first game I ever purchased for.
Well, speaking of Sonic, in the defense of the fandom, okay, pretty much every Sonic game, like after Sonic Adventure 2, has been lambasted by like at least half of the reviewers. So
Not nearly as bad as.
my point is when people say that a Sonic game is bad because of that, because some of the other ones they say were bad or at least enjoyable for some people, when people said Sonic 06 was bad, people still had to play it for themselves to see what kind of degree of bad it was.
Hold on. Let me pull up Metacritic because.
Ted,
Sonic 06
Metacritic doesn't mean anything. You have to play the game yourself.
Well, no.
You have a
PS3.
PS3.
I'm not
you
talking
have
about
the
how good the game is. I'm talking about
I'm
the
I'm
reaction
just saying.
from the critics.
I'm just saying
is
all
much
the bad.
sharper.
I'm just saying all the bad reviews sort of created a kind of smokescreen where
Okay, Shadow the Hedgehog's Metacritic is 51. Sonic 06. Sonic 06 Metacritic is loading. Oh, I can't find it. Huh.
It doesn't exist.
I think that is the Metacritic.
Okay, hold on. I searched Sonic. Sonic 40s. Okay, never mind. It's not that much lower. Okay, continue on.
The only other thing I particularly will remember about the 360 is its red rings of death.
Oh yeah, you know what? I want to rant about this because I've ranted about it before, but since we're talking about last generation, I really, I'm not going to hold it against 360 games, and I still own a 360. But I really dislike the way the 360 swooped in, stole the market. Microsoft showing complete disregard for whether or not their hardware was reliable, because I'm pretty sure they knew that red ring problem was going to be a major problem at the time.
It was something like 25 to 30% fail rate.
No, I heard
Yeah.
55% fail.
Wow.
That's
Early on,
obnoxious.
launch 360s were really bad in this
Yeah.
regard. Some people still have their launch 360s and they haven't red ringed yet, and those are really lucky guys. But
Yes.
still, Microsoft knew this was a problem. They released the console early anyway, just to edge into the game market before Sony could, and that pretty much colored the entire first half of the generation, with Microsoft in the lead and the PlayStation 3 chugging along in the background.
And you know what?
You can blame the game library somewhat for that, but we'll talk about that when we get to Sony.
Yeah,
in
just-
general.
Yeah, I know. Like, despite Microsoft
Mm-hmm.
doing that just intentionally to get the jump on it, from a business perspective, it worked.
It cost them
It worked,
billion.
and you know what? That bugs the crap out of me, because the fact that something that underhanded could work.
Well, karma's being a bitch this year, so.
Oh yeah, karma will eventually catch up to Microsoft, and it already has in the form of the Xbox One. Even after all their policy reversals, but the damage has already been done. But that's then. This is now. So
Yeah.
But now there wasn't. Basically, there was nothing about the 360 in particular that I found needing to
Well,
get it. That was my.
the reason I got it like compared to the PS3, which is by 2008 was already out. Um, I already had plenty of experience with the Xbox. I never owned an Xbox, never. It was either PlayStation 2 or GameCube for me. Um, but on those occasions that I did play the Xbox, it was I was over at my friend Matt's house or playing Halo or something like that. I really did like the feel of the 360's controller, not the Duke, the re-release. I think it's called like the S controller or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
The 360 controller has a very, very comfortable shape to it. I'll say
yes,
that. I love the controller.
I will say when it comes to the seventh generation, the 360 wins in terms of best controller.
Yeah.
I just love the way it feels.
The big downside to it though is the D-pad.
Oh yes,
Like
never forget that
the
piece
the
of shit is horrible.
the D-pad is circular and it tries to be another analog stick, but it fails at both being an analog stick and being a D-pad. And the thing is, most games try to use the D-pad for things that need four directional movement.
Yeah,
And
mean,
you're
like
constantly
platformers?
you're constantly accidentally pressing a diagonal direction and getting the wrong input, and that makes it horrible for fighting games or games like Devil May Cry 4 that use the D-pad for style selection or something.
yeah. Well, in the case of like of the first generational Xbox 360 controllers, they barely read diagonal input because when I was playing the Xbox Live Arcade version of Symphony of the Night, I can barely do any of the goddamn spells. Because it wouldn't read any of my D-pad inputs correctly, and I can't do that shit on an analog stick. So,
Yeah. It's like
it's,
I think they make a third-party controllers that are basically the Xbox 360 controller with a fixed D-pad. So
yeah.
yeah,
The
if you
only
can find a reliable brand, I'd suggest one of those.
I have that. I'm not sure if it was officially distributed by Microsoft, but I have that 360 controller that has that turn dial D-pad that you can turn and click so that the D-pad sticks out. Which remedies some of the issues I have, but it can still be better. But I don't think it's worth the $60 price tag.
Yeah. There is one other thing that bugs me about the Microsoft controller, though, and this is just a general thing: the proprietary port for charging and wired play. I kind of like the PS3 controller in that it uses mini USB, so if you lose your cord, you can just pull out a USB cable from your computer desk and use that instead.
Yeah, it's actually universal.
Yeah, for battery packs, for the wire charger, for everything on the PS3, everything is proprietary. And I mean the 360. And you know what? That even extends to headsets. The PS3 can use pretty much any plug-and-play USB headset for online chat and stuff.
Yes.
But I think for the 360, you have to buy one of their headsets and plug it into the controller.
Biting them in the ass for Xbox One.
But
Well, even despite that, though, the 360 was definitely the thing that people used for online gaming. And by online gaming, I mean first-person shooters, because there was no other online gaming.
While we're on the
the
subject,
occasional Madden or FIFA.
while we're on the subject, let's talk about Xbox Live Gold. You know what? This is a trend that's looking to continue on into the Xbox One, but it started with the 360 needing Xbox Live Gold for things other than online gaming. You can't use their Internet Explorer right now unless you have Xbox Live Gold. They have an Internet Explorer app for the 360. Yes, but you can't use it without gold. You're already paying for your internet service provider. Yeah, it's like, and you know what? Even if you have gold, you're still gonna see ads all over your dashboard, which they've changed around about 4 or 5 times by now. By the way, it used to have this sort of blades theme that would flip like pages, and that now it's all like blocks and stuff.
which I'm glad they changed. I hated the blade look.
Yeah, I did too. To be honest,
They want it to look good with Windows 8.
they wanted it to look like the Windows 8 start menu. They want everything to look like the Windows 8 start menu. Nobody likes that start menu except tablet owners, because it's actually kind of convenient for a tablet. But never mind that. This is not a tablet. This is my flat screen bedroom television we're talking about here. I don't want to poke my finger at it. In fact, I'd probably break it if I did.
I haven't had an Xbox Live Gold subscription in well over 2 years. I mean, back then when I first got the 360, system, I used to have it all the time for fighting games, and when I was doing a lot of Resident Evil 5 online co-op. But that bill catches up to you after a while,
Yeah,
and
it does. I understand the pay for it and stuff. Xbox Live Gold online gameplay is generally more reliable in terms of connection and stuff.
yes,
But at the same time, I don't play online gaming nearly enough to want to pay a subscription fee for it.
that is
So
certainly where I fell under. If I'm
yeah,
if I'm going on Xbox Live, it's a downloaded game.
yeah. And there aren't really that many perks to Xbox Live Gold besides that. Like recently, they've started giving out free games, and just sort of riding on the coattails of PlayStation Plus's success, but not nearly as many as PlayStation Plus gives you. Uh, so, yeah, I just don't see the appeal as much. Um, but if you're like a frequent online gamer, gold is worth the price. But if you're like me and you pick up an online mode on a whim, like for maybe a week or two after you get a new game, and then possibly drop it and you don't know whether or not you're going to play online for most of the year, it's kind of why would I want to pay?
Yeah. Overall, though, when it came to the 360, well, besides the controller, that's generally why. I actually can probably just say that it was the controller that was the reason why It was two things actually. There was the controller and usually the stability of multi-platform games. Because I'm looking at my 360 library right now, and the only exclusives I have is Halo 3 and 4.
The only exclusives it had were Halo and
And
Gears of War.
I think that's it. Yeah, everything else I have is multi-platform.
Yeah, multi-platform games generally, not always, but generally, as a rule of thumb, run better on the 360 because it's just a more basic system to develop for, and
Yeah,
because they're aiming at the 360 market, they develop for the 360 first most of the time, and then port to the PS3, which
yeah.
is a hard system to port to.
If you're not developing for it in the first place.
Yes, yeah, so, and that's a trend that goes back to Microsoft stealing the market early on. When we get to the PS3, it caused the game library on that side to suffer quite a bit too.
Uh,
Um,
so like when we like wrap systems up, should like notable entries, things that you should probably recommend to gamers, or if they somehow manage to avoid the 360, PS3 or Wii at this point in time. Like personally, like even they
The only exclusives it has are Halo and Gears of War.
well
Mass Effect was an exclusive before. Now
the
there are
keyword there
PS3
was
versions.
was
But I would like to mention that the PS3 versions of Mass Effect aren't all that great. So I would still get the 360
Or you
versions
could just
if
get,
you
or
buy
you
it
could,
for a
or you,
console.
I was about to say, or you could just get the PC version, but
The
whatever.
PC versions are always better. When it comes to BioWare games, always go for the PC version if your computer can run them.
Steam. I love Steam.
Because Dragon Age is point and click. Mass Effect is a shooter, and that's always better with a mouse and keyboard. So
Oh wait, we forgot about one though. Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts.
What about Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts?
that exists. I forgot.
Okay. Download the soundtrack. Ignore everything else. Oh no, wait. I haven't played, but the Xbox Live arcade versions of the 2 and 64 Banjo games, even without playing them, I can say
I'm
for certain
sorry.
that they're the best versions of those two
I
games.
forgot one of the Xbox 360's headliner exclusives, the Fable series.
Do we need to? Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. My headset went all wonky there for a second. I just unplugged it. What about Fable?
Peter Mullins wants you to really care about that dog.
Call of Duty, Call of Duty, Call of Duty.
To be fair, Fable 2 is a pretty good game. For the time it came out, it looks
So I
pretty
hear.
nice.
Yeah.
Fable 3 is Fable 2, but not as good, and the graphics really show their age by the time it even came out. So it's not really worth talking about much, but if you have a 360, Fable 2 at least is a good game to get.
I'll have to maybe one day see for myself. I only have I think I still have that Fable 3 that came with the slim model I bought a year ago.
Fable 3 is fun enough, it's just not as good as 2.
Yeah. Uh, if I would just recommend like a game that I think performs better on the 360 than like any other system it was released for, Bayonetta. You know,
Oh, yeah.
you get that game on the 360, it is a great, fabulous time.
Meanwhile, the PS3 version has, like, horrible, horrible loading issues that they actually had to
Yeah.
patch out.
Yeah, but that's all they patched out was the loading issues. After that, the game
Mhm.
still suffers from frame rate issues in general, and I
Yeah.
think lower quality textures. But you know, if you don't care about that sort of shit, then it really doesn't matter. But yeah, get it on 360. But yeah, over 360 for the since 2008 has been a really good means of entertainment for me. I'm not really so much of an internet junkie in terms of like Xbox Live, but
Neither am I, which is
it
one of the reasons I went for PS3. But
it has served me well, and I will still get use out of it until maybe 3 years from now. I'll invest in an Xbox One just because. Uh, but yeah, it was definitely a good system, and I'm glad to say that I never really experienced any hardware failures. My brother did, unfortunately. God, poor kid. But you know, it was a good system, and you know,
Yeah, it's more or less the baseline for the entire generation, I would say.
yeah, okay. Well, we'll just repeat that for every system that we talk about. So, all right, 2006 was the release of both the Wii and the PS3. What came out first, technically?
the Wii.
The PS3.
No, I think the Wii came out
No,
before.
PS3 came out on November 11th. Wii came out on November 19th.
Oh,
Okay, and then we discuss 599 US, 599 US, 599 US dollar machine?
So,
uh,
very slow start, fantastic finish.
yeah, right now the PS3 is probably the better system to own as far as just overall value. If you get PS Plus. It's like I'm not sure how much a year. What did I pay? Like
This
$70 a year, but I've gotten like uh like 2 or 3 free games for my Vita and PS3 every month since then. So I feel like I've gotten my money back 3 times by now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I definitely remember though back in 2006, like everyone was harping the fuck out of this system, you know, but
It took at least
for good reason, mind you. You know, the system was $600 when it came out.
Yeah.
it took like 2 years before it had a reasonable enough library of games
Yeah.
for
To be
anybody
fair,
play it
to be
to.
fair about this price, and we've mentioned this before, it was also a Blu-ray player at a time when Blu-ray players were new and quite expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was also a time when I didn't see the need to get a Blu-ray player though, because
Yeah.
I didn't have an HD TV until like 2008. So you know my DVD player was still working just fine.
And the PS3 did actually help the Blu-ray market flourish.
No,
I think.
it pretty much killed HD DVD entirely.
Yes, it did. They were still competing with HD DVD at that point. I almost
Did
forgot
anyone
those
buy
things
that addition to
existed.
the Xbox 360?
I never did.
I don't know anyone who did either.
Wait, what?
They made an HD DVD add-on to the 360
An
to compete
add-on?
with.
Oh man, that's like the Sega CD.
Pretty much.
Jesus.
Pretty much. And it failed miserably.
Yeah.
That's because HD DVD failed miserably.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen an HD DVD copy of anything on like on a Walmart shelf. It was always Blu-ray.
Well, no,
I saw it back when they
back
were
in those
still
years,
making
I
them.
did see them, but I never owned any.
Yeah, I didn't actually own a PS3 until that died, I think. So
Well, I
Yeah.
feel really bad for the people who thought that HD DVD was going to win. So you know they've got like their shelf of HD DVD stuff, and then it's just a wasted $500 when they stop making movies for the
All
thing.
that stock trade.
uh, um let's see. What did you guys all get the PS3 for? What was your first game? Mine was Metal Gear Solid 4. I pre-ordered that game, got the special edition, and then it sat on my shelf for 3 months until I finally got a PS3.
Technically, the first game I got for it was Resistance, which was a launch game just so I could justify getting it.
Uh,
I actually have a hard time remembering the exact year and date I got my PS3. My first one was a hand-me-down. Someone was selling it because they owned it and they figured I'm not using it anymore. I don't need it, so we take it. It's like, yeah, I'll give you the money for it and I'll take it. But with that said, uh, I didn't I didn't buy any games for it at first because my father had a PS3. So I pretty much just borrowed his, quote unquote borrowed, because what I would do is I'd take him and I never give him back. So
Oh, you're one of those friends.
my first game was Metal Gear Solid 4 too.
a game in quote marks.
Well, hold on, Metal Gear Solid 4. Well, it's fitting that you guys say that because Metal Gear Solid 4 was basically the first game that I remember a sizable portion of the fan base thinking was like the killer app, and that came out in 2008, a full year and a half after the system came out. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know that the library has gotten better, but it's not surprised that the PS3 started off so bad when it took a year and a half for it to get something that resembled a killer app.
Well, it depends on how much you like Uncharted, but
Well,
Well,
true.
it had some valiant attempts at system seller exclusives.
Heavenly
So
Sword.
even back early on, you could still like look at the two systems, squint at them, and say, well, the PS3's got more exclusives, or at least more various exclusives. First-person shooters all over.
that's pretty much why I went. That's one of the few reasons I went for the PS3. It was like free online for when I actually did want to. I don't want to pay a subscription service for something I'm not going to use that much, and generally just exclusive because I know Naughty Dog's going to put something generally good. I know, we're going to get our Metal Gear, we're going to get our Final Fantasy stuff, which of course later got to the 360, but with 4 discs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
generally, you bought the
uh,
system at launch. You were there for the long run.
Yeah.
It's like it's not going to be good in the beginning. Then again, what
Yeah.
console launch is?
Yeah.
But like something, the PS3 will eventually reach that status where it is the system to get for that generation. And sure enough, look where we are now.
It did very, very late in the generation, though, like at the Rystar stage of its Genesis cycle.
And I mean, otherwise, like 90% of the games that came out on the two systems were multi-console anyway, so I wasn't particularly missing out.
Yeah, you just had to like for the multi console games, you just had to deal with some technical difficulties that the other system didn't have, but you still had games to play. It is a little rough, but oh well.
Well, one of the main reasons though I wanted to get a PS3 eventually when the money was right was brand loyalty. I loved the PS2 so fucking much.
And the PS1.
Yeah, the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2. Though I love those systems so much, and I still do to this day. My library I think the longest library of games I have is for the PS2. But I know I eventually had to buckle down and get one eventually because I'm gonna play some more. I know Sony and PS3 are going to have some RPGs that I want to play, and
The next God of War.
yeah, that too. Well, no, Heavenly Sword was no, you don't count that.
Heavily cares about Heavenly Sword.
Heavenly Sword was one of those quote unquote valiant attempts I mentioned earlier. It wasn't a very good attempt though.
Goddess of War.
Yeah. Generally, I like to buy my fighting games for PlayStation because I'm not a hardcore player when it comes like to arcade joysticks and shit like that. I'd rather just have a D-pad and I'm fine. But the PS3 controller is perfect for that. That and 2D platformers in general. I love the DualShock when it comes to 2D platformers. It's so comfortable.
Let's talk about 6-axis.
Oh, you
What
mean
about
People use 6-axis.
you mean the thing they tried to use for 1 year and then dropped it completely?
Yeah, it's still built into all the controllers, but
No one uses it for anything.
It's like Metal Gear Solid 4 had this thing where you could hide in dumpsters and peek out, and you controlled where you were looking with the 6-axis.
Nobody used the 6-axis for that.
Well, nobody bothered hiding in dumpsters either. They just used their camouflage.
To me, the 6-axis always sort of seemed like a backup. Ooh, we have motion control too, sort of thing,
Yeah.
just in case the Wii did manage to take off. Which, spoiler alert, it did. So,
For the first 3 years, anyway.
Well,
Yeah,
no, the Wii still is still the highest selling console of the generation.
That's
So.
because of
Oh,
the first 3 years.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
well,
Its
no,
sales plummeted the
well,
last two
no,
or
it's
three
still,
years.
no, hold on. It's still the
We can
best.
get into that as we go along.
Let's get into it with the Wii. For the
Well, why
six
not?
axis. For the six axis, like literally the only game that I've played that uses it in a worthwhile way is Flower,
That's
which
pretty
is
much the
awesome, by the way.
that's pretty much the only game anyone ever quotes for using
It's
it
it's
well.
the only justification for having a six-axis function in that controller, and I recommend
Wasn't
everyone play it.
wasn't there a launch game that utilized 6-axis? Was it Warhawk or something like that?
Yeah,
Or
no one liked that game either.
yeah, it was
Warhawk.
flying. Well, I think that's what it was called. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Warhawk is TPS Online, the game. I
Uh,
think.
let me
It,
look it up because I know
I,
it was
I
it was
have
a
it.
thing.
I know what game you're talking about.
Yeah.
My brother has it. He still plays it. Apparently, it's pretty good fun. Like just for like casual online gaming, and because casual online gaming is free on the PS3, that's fine. But and people still play it. I see my brother playing online all the time, but it's literally just an online third-person shooter. It doesn't even have like a single player campaign.
So Ryan, you've had your PS3 since launch. Like what size and model is it? Like a
The 60 gig, the really fat
60
one.
gig one, yeah. And throughout your nearly 7-year career with that damn thing, have you ever gotten close to filling that thing up?
Close.
Really?
Wait. You're close to filling up a 60 gig hard drive on the PS3. I have like
Well, that's because of a lot
couple.
of weird. That's just because I want the games to run smoother, so I install shit.
Yeah, like I have a couple hundred gigs on my Slim PS3, and that thing is always full, especially after PlayStation Plus hit.
Well, because I didn't do PlayStation Plus because most of the games I already owned.
Yeah, well, hmm.
I will say though, in terms of like the hardware itself, I never had any hardware failures. The only time I ever actually seen a hardware failure was from Elliot's side. Like he had the yellow light
The
of
yellow
death.
light
That's
of
what they're
death.
calling. Yeah,
Uh,
that happened relatively recently though. Um, again,
The
the
trick
dual
of
shot.
the trick of the PS3 is just make sure it's not confined anywhere.
Yeah, and that was the general rule thing with the 360 too. I had a few
Well, no,
friends of mine
the
who
360 was badly made to where it would still overheat occasionally, regardless. The PS3, as long as it was in an open space, you really wouldn't run into that.
well, like the first model I ever got for the 360, was one of those, it was the white models, that was standard at the time, and I never experienced a red ring. Off
Well,
top,
you also got it in like 2008, right? I think they had most new
They
360s.
they went through actually a series of different chipsets in the 360. So like with each progressive year, the chance of red ring got lower and lower until finally they phased it out completely.
but I always kept my systems, all of them, in an open area, and
Yeah.
I perform maintenance on them like once a month. Get the dust out of the vents and shit like that because
Yeah.
you spent money on that shit. Take care of it.
If you take good care of your systems, they'll last longer.
Yeah.
Yep.
How
Yep.
about that?
Well, I've traded my N64 like crap, and that thing's still chugging along for me. So
Well,
To-
that
to-
Only- It is waiting for the moment to go under your bed.
you guys are just pampering them new.
To be fair, not everyone necessarily knows how to do that, and the people who don't know how to do that, if they're smart, they're not confident enough to try without instruction. I still don't know how to clean out the fans in my systems, actually. So I should probably learn how to do that.
You blow into them, and that'll get all the dust out.
no.
Oh,
No, that blows the dust in, though.
Yeah.
That's the bad thing to do.
I would get something that has relatively a low level suction. Like I wouldn't say a vacuum hose because you're just asking to rip apart the circuitry inside there. Use something like that. And when it comes to crevices, get like a few Q-tips and Windex and
Yeah.
wipe that shit down.
Take a straw and suck all the dust out of that.
Yeah, there you go, and ingest that shit.
Yeah, it's like one of the first things you'll learn in any computer class is that heat is the enemy of all electronics, and dust is not a good thing to have around electronics. And also, electronics attract dust like magnets. So yeah, Why did we go off on this tangent?
Hardware
failures.
failures.
Back to yeah, you know what?
But
People
no,
people
I
always
never had any problems with the PS3. It always worked just fine for me.
the yellow light was something 360 fans liked to point out whenever
Even
the
though
red ring was brought up, but
even though
the
the
odds of
yellow,
it were a lot lower.
yeah.
Overall experiences, though, guys, with like
Not,
the
I didn't. I mean, ultimately, I didn't use it as much as my PS2 because, well, PS2. I mean,
Uh,
I still ultimately really enjoyed the system, and I got plenty of use out of it. Just as
well,
my primary, also as my primary Blu-ray DVD player. So
Same here.
there was a really long period of time where I only used my PS3 for PlayStation 1 games, the occasional exclusive, and Blu-ray movies. But like toward the last couple of years of the generation, they started to release a lot more games for it, so I wound up playing more games, and yeah, it just sort of snowballed upward from there.
Yeah, my collection of PS3 games from the last 2 years have boomed
Mhm.
because they really started, like,
Well,
oh
the
wait,
PS
we have a brand to consider here. We should probably make games people care about.
well the PS3 really did sort of pull ahead at the end because it did manage to barely, but it has overtaken the 360 in hardware
well, that's
sales.
because the 360 doesn't sell outside of North America.
Yeah, that's true, but still, it beat the 360 in terms of sales, which is the only number that's important to the people up top. So, you know,
Mhm.
yay for them, I suppose.
I guess one thing to think about when it comes to the PS3 right now is that the PS4 is not going to be compatible with its games because of that complicated architecture thing it has going on the
Well, no, they
inside.
could. It would just jack up the price by another
It would,
$150.
yeah, they would have to do what they tried to do with the PS2 in the first place, and that's install additional hardware inside to make it compatible.
Well,
And
that's how most backwards compatible things work. Like the Wii, in
not
order to have a
not
GameCube, it just stuffed the smaller GameCube into the Wii so you could do GameCube games on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was a cheaper system to begin with, so that they
Yeah.
could when they launched those systems, the Wii was the only hardware selling at a profit. The other two were selling at a loss.
Well,
If I
the Wii's launch price was what, $250?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
It
and
would
was
say
it
that,
was
yeah.
it was easily the cheapest out of all of
yeah,
them.
yeah, it was still it was just running on weaker hardware, so it was cheaper to make, so they could still sell it at that price and make a profit per
That is
system.
ultimately why the PS3 was so expensive when it came out. Well, partially
Yeah,
because of the Blu-ray, but partially because they pretty much had to fit a PS2 in there.
Yeah, and
yeah.
they really tried to like cancel that out with a lot of brand marketing. Like I remember they used to advertise the fuck out of like one was like the cell processors inside it,
Yeah.
like the PS3. They said oh they had like 6 to 7 separate cell processors. This thing is going to really rev things up in terms of technology. It's like pretty much the generation's blast processing.
Well,
I
Sega
don't
Saturn, everyone.
Yeah,
Oh.
I don't. Yelling tech specs at me might get some people excited, but I think for the general market, nobody gives a fuck how many cell
Yeah,
processors are
Here's
in
here's the
the
thing.
system.
Here's the thing, though. That would have been a good sales point if they'd gotten the game market on their side. But the 360 kind of kicked them out of that niche, and as a result, nobody was actually using that cell processor for their
yeah.
games.
I was like Ryan was mentioning the Saturn earlier, and it's almost exactly the same way. Now, granted, for Sony's case, they've actually learned how to actually build games for it, but you advertise or at least put a lot of marketing towards how powerful the PS3 is in comparison to the 360 or just the PS2 in general, but nobody knows how to develop for the damn thing.
Yeah,
And that's for a while.
that was
If
how it
you're
was for the PS3. Yeah.
yeah,
During the last couple of years, we've seen some exclusives that actually make use of the hardware in a good way. I think
Last of Us.
The Last of Us is really good in that department. It's got its flaws, yeah. I'm not gonna tout it as the best thing ever, but it does use the hardware really well. And it is a great game in its own right. So I recommend anyone who owns the system get it. But but yeah, it's like if they had gotten the game market on their side earlier on, we probably would have seen a lot more use for it. And it's a shame that
The
we didn't.
$599 didn't help either.
Well, that didn't help, no.
Well,
But and you
it
know,
was almost twice as expensive
let's
as both.
also, while we're on the subject, let's talk about the disc format because we have these Blu-ray discs for all our games that can hold oodles and oodles of stuff. But because everything's being developed for one disc on the 360, all we're getting is DVD-sized games anyway.
Unless if you want to make 4 discs for your Final Fantasy 13.
I think the only game.
Actually, Final Fantasy 13 was 6 discs on the 360.
What?
6 discs?
What?
I'm pretty sure it was 6 discs or
Hold on.
5. I'm not
Was
sure
it
which, but I
hold
know
on,
it was more
hold
than
on.
4.
Hold on. Final Fantasy 13.
I know it was more than 4.
Hold on.
6 discs so you can walk down a hallway.
Well, you know what? I think that was actually part of the reason the game was hyperlinear.
Oh, wait,
because-
hold on. It
because,
says distribution, 1 Blu-ray disc for PS3, 3 DVD-ROM DLs for 360, so it was 3 discs.
3
3 discs? Really? Oh, I thought it was 6. Oh, I'm thinking of something else probably. It was 3. It was 3 discs. But what was I gonna say? It's actually different than the PlayStation 1 Final Fantasies in the sense that back then, pretty much the entire game was on all of the discs, except for like FMVs were changed around and certain events maybe. But the most space-consuming thing back in the CD age was the FMVs, the videos. Yeah. So you could still play through all of the areas or most of the areas on every disc, except for like disc 4 and 8 and 9 because they blocked out all the areas they couldn't fit into the game, which is why when you go back to the world map in 8, everything has a force field around it for some reason. But for Final Fantasy 13, that's not how it is. I think only the area chunks that you play through on that disc are actually on the disc, which is why you can't backtrack. They
Well,
as
you
I
probably
recall,
could, but
they
then we'd be going back to the mid-90s PC of please insert disc blank into the drive.
Mass Effect 2 actually does that. So does Mass Effect 3.
Oh my.
It's like whenever you travel to certain areas on the galaxy map, you'll get, please insert this disc, please insert that disc. But it's only 2 discs, so it's not as cumbersome. But yeah, it's a pretty big impediment, and for some reason, gamers get really up in arms about changing discs.
Well, it's such a, like Ryan said, it's such a 90s thing, you know? You think that by the time we get HD consoles, we'd be past that sort of crap.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't want to hit the eject button and stick it in another disc.
It's also partially by the fact that most people who play Xbox 360 are not RPG people.
Yeah, well.
I think it's a much smaller market for the 360.
Like, there's like, what, 4 JRPGs on the 360 worth talking about? Or even if, and that's only worth talking about if you're a huge JRPG.
I think
How
Square.
about that Blue Dragon?
Yeah,
I think
there's like Blue Dragon, one Tales of game.
Blue Dragon's not good.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it being worth talking about.
I think Square did one exclusive 360 RPG, but I might be remembering wrong. It might have a PS3 version.
There was
it's
Lost
called
Odyssey.
PS3.
Lost Odyssey? Anybody? No?
I never heard of it.
Oh, he has like some old music composer, and he's dying, and then he's in a JR. It's weird.
The only other thing the 360 ever did in Japan was for porn. Porn games.
Porn games?
What?
For everything.
Okay, well now I need to buy a 360.
Basically, Lewis, they put a lot of hentai games on it. Because the Wii was very underpowered and it had its own thing going on.
One with this?
Because we need HD movies.
Pretty much.
Can't get my Wiimote on.
And the PS3 is tough and expensive to develop for, so okay, cheap hentai games.
Okay then. Right. That's new information to me.
I think
Moving
the only game that ever exceeded the Blu-ray, well, not exceeded, it actually reached the Blu-ray limit because the Blu-ray disc is 25 gigs single layered, 50 gigs double layered. I think Metal Gear Solid 4 was the only game to ever reach the max, double layered. It's so many damn cutscenes.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff in that quote unquote game. I won't accuse them of being lazy. They could have designed it a little more gamey, though.
Well, I mean, I think that people are looking forward to that with Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes or
Yeah,
5.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Big boss.
Yeah. Um. Okay.
Final
We? Question mark.
final thoughts on the PS3?
I ultimately enjoyed it. It had a very slow start, but it really finished strong.
Yeah. And really, there's no sense of going like meaning that in the past tense because we're still going to play the damn things
Yeah.
for a little bit now until
If you just want to pick up one or the other between 360 and PS3, I would say the PS3 is probably the better buy right now.
yeah, you get more bang for your buck.
Well, the
Because
360s. Well, again, we mentioned this earlier, but the 360's biggest plus was online. Obviously, if you were gonna play COD or whatever online, you would have a more enjoyable time on the 360. But since
All those dude bro gamers are going to Xbox One, so
yeah, so I'm pretty sure that they'll be shutting the servers down on most of the online stuff.
within a year or two, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
is the one compatible with 360?
no,
No.
there's no backwards compatibility with any of the next generation games except for the Wii U.
But how many of them are still actually going to play Wii games that aren't named Mario Galaxy 1 and 2?
Um,
Sonic Colors.
Sonic Colors, Trauma Center. I'm gonna still play the Trauma Center games. Last
Well,
story
how
was
many
good.
people are still going to play the Trauma Center games besides you, Ted?
Okay, you know what? You don't have to crush my hopes and dreams, guys.
Well, at least I only need to own one Nintendo system that's small and compact compared to the big bulky Xbox One and the reasonably bulky
No,
PlayStation 4.
I've seen pictures of the PS4. It's only slightly bigger than the Wii U.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's not. It's big enough that it's going to take up space on my on my thing, and I'm going to have to keep a PS3 around and a PS2. And the Xbox One is this huge block, and there's
Are
still
you
the
ready to
Kinect,
compete with Betamax?
and then there's still the Kinect to worry about. So currently the one thing I like about the Nintendo system is that it's right there. I only need one. It takes up like no space. I can
Well,
just
that
stick it in a
gamepad adds
corner
another.
and forget about it. Yeah, the other systems are like I need the previous systems too. So I don't know how I'm going to fit these in my room now.
First
Uh.
world problems.
Yeah.
I have too many video games.
I have
Okay,
these
then.
2 ice cream cones, but I only need one.
Shall we transition into the one we're probably going to spend the most time on?
Oh, you mean the Super
Oh.
Smash Bros. Brawl and Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 machine?
Damn
No,
right.
There's more. There's more to play on the Wii than that.
No,
All right,
no,
no more
Not
see,
heroes.
much more.
no. You see, this is what the Wii is for. It's when you want to play GameCube games with component wires.
Okay, no, I'm gonna say this right now. The Wii had a better game library than the GameCube. I'm sorry.
No, it
Some of my-
didn't.
Some of
No,
my
it
favorite
didn't.
games are GameCube games, but I played my Wii an awful lot more than I played my
No,
GameCube.
I feel the GameCube's library
Overall-
was significantly better than the Wii's.
Well, this is all stuff to talk about, but the Wii, in comparison to the 3 systems of that generation, the Wii was actually one I stood in line for at a Walmart for 12 hours.
The Wii, I think the Wii might still be the highest selling console of all
No,
time. It's 100. It's over 100 million.
so was the
consoles.
PS2.
All right, let's talk about the Wii marketing because the Wii's incredible sales during the first how many years was it?
4.
What-
Like the first
that-
3 or 4.
I want to say
the
3 or 4,
highest.
yeah.
That was the Wii selling to an incredibly casual market that wasn't going to be invested in actually buying stuff for it for very long.
That came back to bite them in the ass.
Yes. So the thing about it was the reason the bad effect of that was that it gave the Wii an incredibly casual reputation that centered on shovelware games.
Well, every system has shovelware.
It was really noticeable.
Yeah,
with
The
the
Wii,
Wii, though.
the Wii in particular, like the Wii had 2 things going for it back when it first released. One, it was heavily marketed towards casual gamers, and 2, it was cheap. You know,
Yeah.
do you want to spend $600 on the new PS3, or would you rather spend $250 on Nintendo's next system? You know, it was your wallet sung to the heavens for the Nintendo Wii because $600 that's a damn black hole in your wallet at that time.
What I want to say is the Wii doesn't have a bad game library, but
And no, it doesn't.
on a
Carnival
surface
games.
impression, because of all that shovelware, like if you looked at any given Wii shelf earlier on in the generation, there was a lot of shovelware there, and if you were a gamer like me, you just walked away without actually looking for the good stuff.
Well, that's just Nintendo consoles have always marketed towards kids and stuff like that. So there's shovelware, crappy licensed games.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Here's
When
the
you're
thing.
marketing toward kids, you're not actually marketing toward kids, you're marketing toward their parents.
Yeah,
And that's a
that's
very
also
different demographic than the gamer mindset, and they did nothing to balance the two demographics in their
Yeah,
marketing.
because here's the thing, Ted. Both the N64 and the GameCube were at least technologically compatible with their competitors.
Yeah.
I think that I believe, yeah, if I
Wii
recall
was-
correctly, the GameCube was more powerful than the PS2. The thing is that the GameCube's disc format didn't
Was
leave them
horrible.
with much room. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
very
it was
like-
limited.
So what you have in this particular instance is the Wii is so drastically underpowered, developers have to make a choice. Well, our
Yeah.
game's more focused to the gamer, so they're going to sell more regardless on the other two systems. So what
Mhm.
wound up happening is that the Wii just didn't get a lot of other games that were coming out at the time. It was just kind of the Wii had its own thing, and if you didn't like that one thing, you weren't gonna get into it.
And then you get games like No More Heroes and Mad World where gamers are like, "Oh my god, they're marketing toward gamers."
I don't. Well, first off, I hate the sort of casual, hardcore distinction because I feel like it's arbitrary as fuck. Because Mario is a series that markets towards everyone. So does that make it casual, or is it hardcore because it's a game system it's a game series that gamers technically play? It's all very arbitrary.
Look, yeah,
I feel like
the
if
whole-
people
the whole-
say casual,
the
I feel
whole-
like
has been
it doesn't.
Yeah, I
mean
know.
anything.
Look. Just to put this out there real quick, the whole hardcore versus casual argument is just a whole bunch of dick stroking.
Yes.
Yes. That's all it is, and it should never be the basis of an argument of why you should or should not get this game. If anyone tells you
Dude,
to
bro.
avoid, if anyone ever tells you to avoid this game because you're like, oh, it's kidding and stuff like that, you give that person the biggest middle finger you could possibly muster, and tell them to go.
Well, most of them are probably dude bro gamers. So.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
tell that person to go fuck themselves because who the fuck cares? It is a video game. You play video games to be entertained, to get away from the hardships that is reality. Whether it's Call of Duty, whether it's Mario, Sonic, fighting games, it does not fucking matter. Play the fucking game already and shut the hell up,
Dude bro.
dude, bro.
Right. The thing there, though, the thing there is because it is an arbitrary distinction because of the way, because of the divide between the 360's hardware and where the developers went for that, and the Wii's marketing and hardware and where the developers that developed for that generally tended to go. It started to become more of a purchasing decision than an arbitrary label thing, as far as where your money went buying games. And the Wii, after it got over that massive financial high of all the parents buying the Wii for their younger kids and the cheaper games and all of that, it started to they found themselves at a loss for how to get more serious gamers with more dedicated spending habits onto their system.
Well, no, I think that pretty much every serious gamer owned a Wii because there was just that many sales. I think it's more a matter that people didn't own nearly as many Wii games.
People. No, that depends on what kind of gamer they were, how much money they had. If they were multi-console gamers like all of us, yeah, pretty much everyone owned a Wii. For those occasional exclusives that were,
The
really
Nintendo
worth
stuff.
it. Mostly the Nintendo stuff. There was some other stuff.
No more
It's
heroes, but-
mostly the Nintendo stuff. But if we're talking about gamers who don't have enough money to buy more than one or possibly two consoles, it's
they're most likely going to get the 360 or PS.
yeah,
Well,
it
people are
depends
gonna
on
own two consoles, I feel like there weren't too many people who owned a 360 and a PS3 because that feels awfully redundant. Because as we mentioned before, 90% of those games libraries were multi-platform anyway. So
Yeah, but
why get
sometimes
both?
again, that's what I was getting into earlier with brand loyalty. You know, it's not just a matter of redundancy, but sometimes there are people, even I'll admit to that. Sometimes I get a system just mutually for the exclusives because I'm not going to get the next Mario, Metroid, or Zelda game with a 360 or a PS3. I got to get a Wii, uh, and I
Nintendo
got to
gets
get
games that aren't Mario.
But
yeah. Believe it or not, Ryan, yes.
there's tons. I feel like you have to go looking. But again, I say stuff like Trauma Center, and there's the Operation Rainfall stuff. There are not Mario games to play. You just gotta spend a little bit of time, looking for stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. Compared to the three consoles of that generation, the Wii, you had to do a lot of digging. Like you just, and and I'm just talking about a quality game in general, not a piece of shit that's broken, doesn't play well or anything like that.
Terrible wavy controls.
Yeah, it's just something that was made for a quick buck, and then they can
Well,
capitalize.
every console has shovelware.
But
The NES is one of the most
The
popular
Wii
consoles ever.
was the king of it, though, Ted. You
No,
kind
no,
of
the NES. I still think
Carnival
has
Games
shovelware.
was a platinum
I,
seller
wait, I'm
on the
not
Wii.
talking about NES though. I'm talking about this generation. It's like,
Well, I'm just saying in general, the amount of shovelware has no.
yeah, shovelware exists for all consoles, but the Wii in particular had
But
so
if you don't buy it, then it shouldn't matter. Everybody knows what shovelware looks like.
No,
If it has Hannah Montana on the cover, don't buy it.
No,
talking
we know, not the parents who go out and get their license games for their kids because it's a name they know. Or
yeah, I mean, like the
But we're not
obviously
talking
the
about
kid
that
the
point.
kid that gets the Wii has no say in what he or she wants because in the end it's their parents buying the game. Unless it's like a birthday gift or graduation gift or a Christmas gift or something like that. But you got this parent that's going into a GameStop
or
and
more just like a Best Buy or something.
do something like that, and you're looking at the selection of Wii titles, and it's all this mini game shit, this carnival shit, this four
Wave
player
your
mayhem sort of
wave
thing.
your arms in the air thing.
You gotta dig. You gotta dig for those quality games that are gonna last more than a damn week.
And parents don't really research that stuff in general.
Yeah.
Well, again, if you're watching Brain Scrouch Comms, you know how to use Amazon.
We're talking in general here, Ted.
Yeah, we're talking about general sales and what led to this or that in the generation overall. So, like, our audience knows what the good games are. Our audience is probably buying their own games, or at least is at a point now where they're buying their own games, just in general. But
I just don't think that you should hold all this sort of shovelware shit against it when anybody who actually plays these sorts of things regularly knows
No,
what or not to buy.
ultimately, Ted, go look at the general console Metacritic ratings and such. The Wii is significantly lower than the other two, just in terms of general average.
well, it's not about exactly holding it against them. It's more about where their market is at because of what they've done, and because of where the gamers have drifted, and where their own purchasers sit. And they do have to work to overcome that marketing with the next generation as well, and they seem to be moving in that direction, thankfully.
And it came when it comes to like the gamers in general around 2006, the fact that and as we all know that is not the case, but when the Wii was announced and it was it was being demonstrated and we found out that Nintendo wasn't making that technological leap as the 360 or PS3 did, that turned off a lot of gamers.
Two GameCubes duct taped together.
Now obviously you shouldn't ever buy a system just because of how much more powerful it is. Unless you're a multimedia guy or
Well, again, it was just one of those I could tell right away. That means it's not going to get a lot of ports.
yeah, it's going to turn away a lot of developers. It's like, oh, we really want to show our power with the new stuff, new systems, but we can't do that with your system because you guys are limiting yourselves in technology wise.
again though, at that time when they were developing when they were making this, it was like 2004, 2005. They couldn't have anticipated that everybody would have had an HD TV just 2 years into the future. They don't have a crystal ball to anticipate that sort of shit. So
Well, they don't necessarily have to though, because the Wii it does have component output. So if they had made it so, it could have output at least 720. It already has the output method for that. It just needed the capability on the inside. At the very least, what I wish they had done is given it that ability so that their lower graphics
Yeah.
games would have looked smoother on screen.
Because yeah, even when you put in the component cables in the Wii, the highest it's getting is 480p.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
resolution isn't necessarily graphics.
Yeah.
It does have a drag on graphics.
And you put that on
Processors,
that on a big TV, it means every game that's not Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 is going to look pretty.
Yeah.
eh, eh. Well, okay, whenever I think whenever Wii games, tried to do anything like super high poly, yeah, I'm gonna agree. But there's lots of stuff that I think the Wii games, that you saw a lot of developers doing a lot of interesting things on Wii games, like unique art styles, stuff like that, which again, is part of trying to mask the technical difficulties of the system. You can't output something super realistic, but then you get a lot of super unique, sort of interesting looking games instead.
Yeah,
Stuff like
I'll give you that. It did encourage some creativity with
yeah,
graphics.
yeah, people that stuck with the Wii were forced to get creative, and I personally think that paid off.
Yeah.
Because to me, in the Wii's case, uh, when the Wii has a good game, it's a really fucking good game.
It's a shame there were few and far between.
Well, it depends. It depends if you get Nintendo. If you got a Nintendo Wii for exclusively for like the Mario and Nintendo brands in
You
general.
buy a Nintendo system for the Nintendo games.
I still feel like there were enough exclusive third party. I know that third party support was something.
Aside
that
from
the Wii-
Sonic Colors and No More Heroes.
Well, the Operation Rainfall stuff.
Oh,
That
right,
was one of the
yeah.
biggest. That was one of the biggest movements that I've seen in video gaming in
That
general.
was
and
because that was also partially because the Wii's release schedule was so fucking barren at that point.
well,
It
yeah,
was like,
I know.
please give us something.
There's again, over the past couple of years, I've been way more DS, 3DS than anything console, but because I think handheld's where Nintendo's been shining the most over the last while. But I still had something to play on my Wii more often than not. You know, for someone who only buys like one game every 2 months or 3 months, which is basically how I am.
Well,
I
it,
had
it depends on
something
the
to
time of
play.
the year for me because it's holiday season. A lot of stuff comes out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always had something to play, but I'm also not buying or renting a new game every week. So
Yeah.
if you need like a constant stream of new releases, the Wii was not your go-to guy. But I still had something to play enough to keep me entertained.
I would also say though, Ted, out of all of us here, you have the most experience with the Wii because
It was all you had.
until recent events, it's all you had.
Well,
So
it's all I really wanted to, though. Is the
When are you
thing,
going to play Sonic 06, by the way?
Shut up.
no, but here's the thing, though. I'm pretty sure it's just because you felt you ever got what you knew with the Wii. But I think as like 2000, like when did you get your Wii first? Like when did you first
no,
get
I
it?
got my Christmas of 2006.
2006. And how old were you? You were
2006. That was okay. I was born in '93. 13.
13 years old.
Kid.
Oh God.
GTFO, man.
No, but what I was getting at was that you're 13 years old. You have the Wii. Obviously, you're in no financial situation to get a 360 or PS3 on your own, on your own accord. So I wouldn't say you were so much forced. It's just that you're in a situation where you pretty much got to experience the most out of the Wii because that's all you had.
Well, I didn't really want a 360 or a PS3 at that point because the PS3, like we said, basically had no games at the beginning of its life cycle, and at the 360, even at that point, I knew, okay, I don't give a shit about Madden. I don't give a shit about FPSs. There's not a whole lot here that I really want to play. We all know
What
that I
about
like.
that third Banjo-Kazooie game?
Well,
Uh,
shut up. Nobody likes nuts and bolts.
It's it depends on well, your financial situation was at that point where the Wii was your comfort level too. So, but for the more
Because at that point, I mean, John and
I
people
Liz,
didn't
you were
have a
both
lot of money
technically,
to spend
you
on.
were both technically
yeah,
adults, and I was, had
people
a
with deep
part-time job in
wallets
high
or
school.
more
So
income would have looked more at the PS3 360's amount of multi-platform games and then picked the one that had the exclusives they were more interested in.
Well, the thing I think I spent my most money on, like, I got occasional disc games, but I spent most of my money on, like, cards so that I could buy virtual console stuff, because that's how I got introduced to most of, like,
The
to a
older
lot
stuff.
of, like, SNES and NES stuff that,
Yeah, you know what, let's take a moment to talk about that because I really love the virtual console. Um,
Nintendo,
Yeah, I agree.
why did the fuck did you start all over with the Wii U? All that shit should already be there.
Well, no, you can still play your virtual console stuff. You just have to load up the Wii menu, and you
I
can
know,
still.
but it's just one of those. It should still fucking be there.
I know too, but they want to gradually release stuff so that they can get more money. When people are more likely to impulse buy stuff when they see that it is just announced. Because if they had just ported
yeah.
the entire Wii Virtual Console
Yeah.
library, they're not going to get people to download like Super Mario RPG right away. But if people see in a email, ooh, Super Mario RPG has just been put onto the Virtual Console, people are more likely to just impulse buy that sort of thing.
At the
Guilty,
same
guilty.
time, at the same time, that seems like a really underhanded tactic when you just spell it out the way you just did.
Well,
Um,
yeah, true, but then again, the stuff is already on the Wii's Virtual Console to begin with, and you can still access that on the Wii U, so it's all still technically there. You just won't,
Or you can emulate.
or you could, Brian.
well, that's technically what they're
Emulation
doing.
is
That's
wrong.
technically what they're doing, and I want to call attention to this, okay? Even though the Wii's resolution isn't as good as the 360 or the PS3, when you say download a Genesis game on the Wii, it looks a hell of a lot better than the 360 and PS3 versions of that same game. It
Well,
just
that's
looks
just
smoother.
Well, because it's native 480p rather than, you're sending the signal through an HDMI cable.
Yeah, it's just like when I play, like if I'm gonna play any of, and the sound quality is also better too. And you know what? I think it's partly because the higher end hardware has a harder time emulating older technology. But it's like when I play the Sonic games on a console now, it's always on the Wii, even though I have the 360 PS3 versions because the sounds are all there are like little out of whack sound effects and stuff all over the place, and the graphics look blurrier even, and they have these filters that look like crap, but I can play it on the Wii, and it looks
Yeah.
it looks like it looks like I'm playing it on a PC emulator, which technically I guess is. But it just looks and sounds so much better.
Yeah, I would
Eh,
agree. It just in general though, the Wii's Virtual Console I thought was pretty good shit. It reintroduced me to a lot of older games or franchises that I've heard so much about in the early to mid '90s, but I never had a chance to play either. When I was a kid back then, I didn't really have the
Same.
financial means to play them. But it was because of the Virtual Console that I was able to experience Legend of Zelda for the first time, the first one on the NES, Castlevania 1, and all that stuff. And you know, it compared to the three consoles, is it safe to say the Virtual Console was one of the best?
Well,
uh,
considering what they had to work with, remember, Microsoft has not basically just had to rely on indies because they have no backlog of games to work with.
Yeah.
Sony had some good PlayStation 1 stuff because, the Crash, Spyro, Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also got.
Sony has good stuff there, but Nintendo just has a much bigger backlog to work
Yeah,
with.
for me, the Wii, during most of the time I owned it, apart from when I was playing like the Mario Galaxy games or Sonic Colors and stuff, it was backwards compatibility to system. I would play on the Wii a lot, but it would always be GameCube games or earlier most of the time. And
well,
there's a lot of backlog there, especially since they can't exactly they have a lot of exclusive backlog stuff, Nintendo Entertainment System, Super Nintendo stuff that you could not just point blank could not get on the other systems.
Well, with the Wii U, basically had access to every major game from all of Nintendo's library.
Yeah,
Wii
yeah.
games, GameCube games, and then they had N64 and down on the Virtual Console.
It's like if you wanted to play a 16-bit game on the other systems, it was pretty much a Sega game, and they they had Backbone for all of their re-release needs, and Backbone just not very good at that.
On Good Ventura, port of a port of a port of a port.
Indeed.
I think the only real disappointment when it comes to Nintendo's download services was WiiWare. Because
Oh,
WiiWare, they had such a small file size limit. It was like what, half a gig at most, or it was
Yeah.
something ridiculous.
500 megabyte flash memory. That was just
Yeah,
pathetic.
I have explained this before, but I'll explain it again here for posterity. The flash memory built into the system, even if you have an SD card or something with a lot more memory in it, is the most they have to work with, because not only do they have to assume that you don't own an SD card, but when you play something off an SD card, what you're actually doing is copying it into your system's flash memory temporarily to play it. So they can't get any bigger than what the system has in it, and what the system has in it is tiny for anything that isn't an old game.
Yeah, when it comes to WiiWare stuff, download the two Lost Winds games, and then you don't have to touch that shit ever again.
Yeah. It's like you'll never experience any trouble if you're playing like N64 or behind games, because there's plenty of space on an SD card for that, and copying it over, it takes like no time at all. But WiiWare really suffers for that. Everything has to be cramped down into small file sizes, and sometimes they do amazing stuff with that.
I remember
but
the days
most of the
before
time not.
I remember the days before the SD card patch, where you had to shuffle around games and download stuff again, and good times. And by good times, I mean awful times.
Yeah,
when
I
the
thankfully
fridge gets full.
I thankfully never had to experience the shuffle, the great shuffle of
Refrigerator
2007. I didn't have many virtual console games before the SD card patch, but I'm glad the patch exists there in the first place, because you got an SD card slot there. Fucking use it. Yeah, homebrew. What about that homebrew capabilities?
Homebrew is pretty much homebrew can make a Wii amazing, but I've never experienced that firsthand. So
Hey, look, my Wii just became a Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, TurboGrafx 16, and all this other stuff.
And a DVD player.
Yeah, and a DVD player.
and a DVD player. Yeah, you needed a homebrew for that. Even though the Wii has a DVD
Drive.
for its input.
They didn't want to pay for the licensing just so they could do it.
Yeah.
Which is stupid on their end, but
the Wii ironically does also have the best internet browser out of the three consoles. And not just because point and click is easier with a Wii remote either. It's just like they have Opera on their system, and it's actually a dedicated internet browser that can display things right.
Meanwhile, their online gameplay was terrible.
You just reminded me of the one thing I really hated though about the eShop. I'm sorry, the eShop is what we call it nowadays, but the Virtual Console service, constantly re-entering your account information to buy a fucking game.
Yeah, they had
That was a pain in the ass. It never saved your information like the 360 or PS3 did. You had to manually point and click your information over and over again, and that was dreadful.
Yeah, and I know why they did that, because they didn't bother to have a dedicated online service like Xbox Live or the PlayStation Network. So they didn't save your stuff online. They would have saved it on the console. But they didn't trust any of their owners to be smart enough to delete that shit before they traded their console off. So they just said, you know what? We're not saving your stuff at all. It's like, except for like what your console owns as far as Wii Shop stuff does. It doesn't save like your account information or anything, so you constantly have to re-enter that whenever you buy it. It'll still save what the console owns, but not who owns it or what their payment information is or any of that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, but as Ryan was getting into online, Jesus Christ.
Why did they even bother?
I've heard like.
But aside from Mario Kart Wii, which was okay.
And Tatsunoko versus Capcom wasn't that bad, perfectly honest.
But everything else.
Brawl has like massive lag, doesn't it?
Brawl is like the worst online experience I've ever played.
Even with the best connection you could possibly have, there is still a 0.5 to 1 second input delay with button commands,
if you're not hosting the game.
It doesn't matter. You can have the fastest fucking connection ever. You can send emails to
I
the
got
fucking sun with how fast your connections are, but it doesn't. It's like the lag was built into the online system, and it's just terrible, terrible.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll be better in Smash 4, but
Well, they fucking better. It's the one thing that we're asking them to do.
well, I will say that the online, my online experiences with the Wii U so far have been better than, because they've learned. Technology improves, as should the online services. But regardless, what were we saying, Louis?
I was just gonna say, for multiplayer, the Wii is still stuck in that GameCube N64 age, where if you're buying a Wii for multiplayer games, you're buying it so that all 4 of the people involved are in the same room with you.
well, to be fair,
The damn Dreamcast had the reception.
Yeah.
well, to be fair, the couch co-op games on the Wii, I think, are
They have some good ones, yeah.
Yeah, like Kirby's Return to Dreamland.
Yeah, it's like the Nintendo lineup, especially the exclusive Nintendo first-party games, still have some awesome couch party multiplayer stuff going for it. And if
Guess
you buy
what?
it for that,
I
you're getting some really fun
I don't
stuff.
live near you guys.
Yeah.
Well, don't worry,
Yeah,
we'll just have to stop by once every year to play.
it's like I have my brother to play couch party
It's like I don't have. I
video
don't.
games
It's
with,
like I
and
really
nobody
don't have
else.
anyone to.
Well, at the very least,
Multiplayer
Nintendo
stuff.
definitely has a niche and a purpose for that sort of thing. Like
Yeah,
if you have friends over, you're probably going to take out your Wii to play New Super Mario Party 2 Return to Origins. You're probably going to pick up one of those instead of trying to split screen FPS on something or something like that. Nintendo's always been big on getting people together in a room for multiplayer, and they do that well, as much as we would like them to do.
I appreciate that because the other 2 consoles could use more of that shit. But
No, I think the other consoles do that. It's just with games we don't give a fuck about.
Yeah.
no,
No,
you see,
I think a lot of
there's this massive trend in multiplayer gaming developing where there is no local multiplayer mode at all. It's
Yeah,
like
I was gonna say that. I think most of the FPSs that have come out recently don't even have a split screen mode.
it's like I appreciate the Resident Evil games for one thing. It's like even Resident Evil 6 still has a fucking split screen mode, but most of the games I'm seeing don't have that option. It's like there's no local co-op in Halo, is there? I think I must have missed it if there is. It's all online, and if you don't have online or if you don't want to pay for Xbox Live Gold, you're not getting any multiplayer at all. All you have is that short as fuck single player campaign.
And
That's
it's for that
fun,
reason
but
alone.
has
For
no
that
local-
reason alone, I would think there would be local co-op built into it, because that just sounds retarded.
Like the original Halo, there wasn't. I don't think there wasn't.
No,
there wasn't
there
any
was.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, there
No.
was. Halo 1 and 2 and 3.
No. What I mean is, I don't think there was much in the way of online for the original Halo when it first came out. So everything was in the same room. If you wanted to multiplayer.
Well,
I
at that
think
point
there
in
was-
time, online gaming was still
That was 2001.
relatively
Yeah,
new.
I know.
Well,
It's just like everyone's
yes.
got such an online gaming boner that they forget local multiplayer exists, and that, maybe people want to play multiplayer in the same room. You know what? Here's the thing: why don't you give an online multiplayer game the ability to have 2 local multiplayers playing it at the same time? Like,
Yeah.
through the same account. It's like why not? Like why if I want to play online with my brother, if I want to play an online multiplayer FPS with my brother, what we would need is 2 Xbox 360s and 2 copies of the same game and 2 separate accounts, even though we're in the same room with each other. And that just bugs the shit out of me. Even though
Security.
Please drink your Doritos activation chip now. For the Kinect or whatever it is.
Sorry, face not recognized. Please consume 2.2 liters of Mountain Dew to proceed.
Yeah.
And that just bugs me. Like, I think maybe they'll do that for sports games still. I'm not sure. I don't play sports games, but
Well, sports games are almost entirely one-on-one, so they kind of can, but
yeah. So if they don't have a local multiplayer game in that, if they don't have a local multiplayer mode in that, what the fuck are they doing? But yeah.
I will say though, the Wii is responsible for, one of the best midnight events I ever went to was Smash Brothers Brawl. 'Cause I had such a fun time waiting in,
Hype.
yeah,
Hype.
the hype and the when I actually went to the midnight tournament and stuff like that, and it was. I can only hope that the Wii U version has something very similar to that, if not better.
October
But
10th.
Those Miiverse once a day pictures aren't doing it for you, John.
I'm sorry, they're not.
It's good enough for right now.
Well, yeah, it fills the gap, but
You
October the-
must recover.
October the 10th, 2007. A day that will live.
You're hoping it's better than your Momocon Smash experience, John.
What Momocon Smash experience?
Exactly.
yes, yeah. Though, when it comes to the three systems, the Wii was the one
I played plenty of it, but I just ultimately got more enjoyment out of my PS3.
It was a transition, between because out of the three systems of the generation, the Wii was actually the one I got first. I got it. Now I mentioned that I waited in line for 12 hours for a Wii, but that actually wasn't for me. That was for a friend. I didn't actually get my Wii until 2007. But it was the first one I got because I love Nintendo. It was cheap, and I knew eventually the next Smash Brothers game was going to be released.
Yes.
So
You get the Nintendo console for the Nintendo games.
but
At this point,
I did-
anything third parties do is just a bonus.
yeah, at that point in time, I got my enjoyment out of it. But as the years went on, I started just to transition more into the 360 and PS3. But with that said, though, I had a good time with the Wii. I thought, despite its haphazard marketing and stuff like that, and
Stupid control.
I don't mind the Wiimote perfectly
No,
honest.
No,
the
the
Wiimote-
Wiimote in and of itself is fine. It's just the motion control.
Well, no, I feel like the motion control,
If it's simply
it's not,
point and click, it works. Anything else, it can't tell what you're trying
well,
to
no,
do.
if you whenever you have to be precise with the thing, like having to waggle for spinning in Mario Galaxy, I never had a problem with that. Having to shake, as stupid as okay, no, actually, I was gonna mention Donkey Kong Country Returns, shake to roll, and that was awful. Never mind, ignore me. Whenever you needed to tilt the Wiimote right to do something, or like do a specific motion with it, and it wasn't the IR, that's when the Wiimote started to get nervous and have a spaz
Okay.
attack.
I want to mention one thing with regards to that. The most accurate time I had with the Wii remote was in fucking Sonic and the Secret Rings. Everything else just didn't mesh right. Like I could steer fine with in Sonic and the Secret Rings. Like when I died in that game, it wasn't because the Wii controls sucked. It was because the level design sucked. The thing is, the problem I have with the Wii remote isn't that the motion control exists. It's that it dominates the controller. It dominates the control scheme. The controller is built for the
Well,
motion.
that was sort of the point, though. The motion.
but the problem is it
that would
didn't
be
work.
fine. That would be fine, but the technology wasn't there yet. Like maybe for the Wii U, where the technology is more refined, I'll be able to get into that.
That's why they made the Wii Motion Plus to begin with.
Yeah, the Wii, they made the Wii Motion Plus as an add-on to make the motion control better, and eventually they just started building it into the controllers and putting all this pressure on designers to actually work it into their game design. But when the Wii came out, when we just had vanilla Wiimote motion control, you'll have games like what was it called, Red Steel?
Yeah, Red Steel 1. Ugh. Ugh. Ugh.
Yeah,
I never played it, but I've heard stories.
Red Steel 2 actually controls better, but it's still not a very interesting game.
Yeah.
Simply put, the base Wii remote does not really work well.
Well, no, it works. Again, it works. If you're trying to be like one-to-one precise with it, it doesn't work. But
that's the only thing anyone wants to use motion controls for.
Yeah, that's true. But Wii Sports worked.
Yeah,
IR stuff worked. Having to use a waggle for like a button press, most of the time that worked.
We want our lightsaber game.
Yes.
Here's the thing, okay? The fact that it didn't work so well didn't bug me. It's just that it dominates the controller. So as the generation went on and people expected better and better things from it, the controller wasn't able to deliver. And because it dominates the control scheme, because you have this awkward remote in one hand and nunchuck in the other, and hold the remote on the side like a fucking NES controller when you wanted to have an actual game, and this additional classic controller when you wanted to have a normal controller for a change, or the GameCube controller.
Yeah, the
Uh,
GameCube controller.
yeah,
A lot
it's
of
just the thing is, it prevented a lot of basic shit that even the previous GameCube could do, or the other consoles were doing without a care because it was just normal gaming.
by the end of the Wii's life cycle, a lot of stuff really did just well, not even by the end. A lot of games, just assume that you could have a classic controller or a GameCube controller.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
I don't
they
think
pretty much
anybody used the Wiimote and nunchuck for Smash or anything like
they,
that.
they pretty much had to, or they were limiting themselves to a very small number of buttons, a waggle, another waggle in the nunchuck, and that just made games awkward to design around. Like No More Heroes couldn't have basic camera control without. Did they have like a
You had
move
a,
the camera around?
no, they just had a center behind you.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
and that's like a jump back to Nintendo 64 era.
Again, that's just more Nintendo. The Nintendo Wii was very much doing its own thing. So
Eh,
again, you had to design around the controller. You had to design around the hardware
yeah,
limitations, which
it,
is
it,
part of the reason why there are so few really worthwhile games on the system. Because people, if you wanted to make a Wii game, you had to make a Wii game. You
Yeah,
couldn't
you had
make
to
a game for the Wii.
you had to design around things, and the controller was a really obvious barrier there. You had to really work around it, and some games just couldn't work around it, or didn't have the effort put in to work around it. And yeah, when it worked, it worked. Like the Metroid Prime games work well with a Wii remote, because of their
Until they
basic.
get you to pump things and
Well,
Yeah.
anything that
Again,
requires the IR was
again,
definitely the strongest
again.
thing from the Wiimote. I think like the IR pointer. I
Technology
love
we've
that shit.
had since the 70s.
You know something about the IR? Okay, whenever you have the classic controller, it's actually plugged into your Wii remote. So if you have like a grip hooked into the back of the Wii remote that sticks the Wii remote into the back of the classic controller, you can have the classic controller and the IR at the same time. And it just made me, whenever I did that, I thought, why didn't they just make a controller and stick an IR pointer in the back of it?
Um,
Because that would work so much better in a lot of
isn't that
ways.
six
You could
axis?
have no,
I,
no,
I
no.
don't,
An
I don't,
IR
I can't
pointer
imagine
point and
playing
click
the
stuff.
trauma. Well, you see, whenever I think of IR pointer controls, I always think of Trauma Center, and I can't think of playing Trauma Center with having both of my hands doing the aiming. It needs to be just the one. So, but then
Yeah,
again, I'm the
sometimes
only. I've established that I'm the only person in the universe that plays Trauma Center. So,
it's like
I guess that's not
it's
bad.
like it's awkward to get used to at first, but if you can do that, and most of the only times I ever did that was on the menu, unfortunately. But if you can do that, it gets really comfortable to just play with a grip classic controller and the Wii remote stuck on the bottom of it to point at things with. If they had, if there had been an option for that in a lot of games, like I think Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess would have been more comfortable to play on the Wii. If you're playing that on the Wii, what are you doing? But
Well,
yeah.
no, you need to change opponent's name to hack into the system.
Not anymore, but
Well, back then,
I
yeah.
mean, I mean, just playing the game. Like it's a GameCube game. It feels like a GameCube game. Why are you playing the Wii version? You should be playing the GameCube version. It's compatible with your Wii anyway. What are you doing? Uh, yeah.
you have anything else to say on the three consoles? Because we've been going for quite a while.
Why don't we just say our favorite game from the past generation? On any of the consoles.
If
Because
we could just, if we can just
if you could pick
boil
one
it down
game,
to a system,
well, no, like in general, if you could only have one Generation 7 game to play for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Super Mario Galaxy 2. I know
probably
I dislike the Wii, but my favorite game last generation is fucking Super Mario Galaxy 2.
it would be Smash Brothers Brawl for me. That's the one I put the most time and effort in. Out of all the games I've played for this generation, it's that one.
Well, Smash because of multiplayer, because you can just do that ad infinitum.
Yeah.
But probably the game that left the most impact on me was Last of Us.
Yeah, that's a close contender, I'll say.
Last of Us
Right?
was Last of Us was great to me, but I wouldn't class it. I wouldn't grade it that high.
Well, because you play them for very different reasons.
Yeah,
It's just one of those. You tell me one game, it's like, well, it just depend. The one game depends on my mood.
Yeah.
I would have to. My favorite game from Last Generation is probably Rayman Origins. Actually, I love the fuck out of that game. John, you should play it. Glaring at John.
He'll play it when you play
it's
Sonic
actually-
06.
It's actually
Yeah, there
free
you go.
on the Vita right now. It's free on the Vita right now. I have it on my Vita. I just snatched it up free. I haven't touched it yet, but it's free on the Vita. PlayStation Plus for the win.
You record yourself playing Sonic 06, Dad. I'll pick up Origins.
Will you play
Why don't
Origins?
you just get it free on PlayStation Plus? You don't even need to have a Vita. Just go on
No,
your
no, I have
PlayStation
it.
Store.
I have it
Pick
on the
download.
I have it on the 360. It's
No,
just that
this is what you do with PlayStation Plus. Whenever they release a free thing, go on the PlayStation Store, pick download, hit cancel, and it's yours forever. As long as you stay a PlayStation Plus subscriber, you can download it whenever the fuck you want.
well,
I have this massive backlog of PlayStation Plus games that I technically own but haven't played yet. It's awesome. It's like Steam sales, except you don't actually have to pay anything when you splurge.
Interesting.
So is that about it?
As I do the Mr. Burns
Oh.
hand twiddle.
yeah.
I think we've said everything worth
I think
saying.
we've said
so
everything.
let's
The only thing I
wrap
can really
this up.
say is that I'm not exactly sure how this new generation is going to start. I can only hope the Wii U's library starts picking up, and
Well, it already has.
it looks like it's going to start very soon. And I really don't have anything to say for the PS4 and Xbox One
Watch
at this
Dogs.
point.
Watch
But
Dogs is also going to be on all the old.
Yeah, I know, but still, Watch Dogs.
I
hopefully,
don't think I've ever been less enthusiastic about a new console generation, though. It's just like whenever I'm going to play something, I grab my 3DS.
No,
I'm not.
I'm gonna.
I'm not.
I'll be happy in the spring when we get Metal Gear. When we get Metal Gear and Infamous and Watch Dogs. So.
Eh.
Well, there are going to be good games. It's not a massive jump, so we're still in our PS3 360 comfort zones. The Wii U is a jump from the Wii, if only because it's going from slightly past GameCube technology to slightly past PS3 360 technology, which was a jump back when it actually happened last gen. So there's that, and it does actually have some fairly interesting motion control and controller gimmicks that hopefully the technology is actually there for, so that it can gracefully be implemented into things.
The gyroscope and stuff on the Wii on the gamepad works, like functionally works. It's just I haven't seen an awful lot of stuff.
Eagle.
Eagle, yeah, yeah. Haven't seen.
Asteroid.
It's like I'm just hoping that the Wii can do that stuff, do it well, and still have controller room for regular shit.
I'll call it out. I'll call it out right now. I think in the long run, very much similar to the PS3, the Wii U is going to be a much better system than what the Wii will ever have been. If only because it doesn't have the Wiimote nunchuck thing,
Yeah.
Well, the
Yeah.
Wiimote nunchuck thing is still. What I like about the Wii U is that the Wii U and nunchuck are still available to use for the games that it would actually suit better for.
Yeah.
Like for the odd game that would be better with IR and nunchuck and whatever. You can
the
still
game-
that's still compatible.
The gamepad is.
It has buttons.
It is. I was going to say the gamepad is still the system's main gimmick, but it's a more traditional gimmick. It's not.
It can slip into more traditional gameplay without limiting camera control or anything like that.
Well, it's basically just a 360 PS whatever controller with a giant screen in the middle.
That
You got all this-
the Ada Xbox Duke.
yeah, true.
Yeah. As long as it works and meshes well with everything, then it's a good thing. And the other thing about the Wii U is that it's not so technologically far behind the current generation that they can't theoretically make multi-platform games for it.
We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
but that's what I'm saying right now.
How about that Xbone?
What about the Xbone?
We've already had this talk.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just being a smartass. So. All right. So I guess we're all done. Yay, new consoles.
I don't know. I bought all
Wait
these fireworks
6
for
months,
nothing.
people. Wait 6 months, please.